Kelsey. This is my channel, The Fancy Hat Lady Reads. I am wearing one of my fancy booktube hats, and today I'm bringing you another BooktubeSFF Babbles video. The BooktubeSFF Babbles are video prompts provided by the people who run the BooktubeSFF Awards. I will link the Goodreads group for the BooktubeSFF Awards down below so you can check it out. Absolutely anyone can join in and make a booktube video, blog post, or any other social media post recommending books for the topic. And this week's topic is SFF featuring people of color. Now, like last week's topic, this is a prompt that I've actually already done on this channel, but unlike last week's prompt, which was auto by authors, this is a prompt topic that is a repeat topic for the BooktubeSFF Babbles. This is a topic that was one of the Babbles topics last year, and I did it when it was one of the Babbles topics last year. So I am going to link that first video from last year for you, and I am not going to repeat recommendations in this one. So in this video, I'm specifically going to be recommending books that I read since I made that last video 11 months ago. I am going to stick with the same basic parameters I gave myself in last year's video though, which is that I am only going to be talking about books by POC authors. I am not going to include POC representation by white authors in this list of recommendations, though I have of course read and enjoyed a number of SFF books by white authors that did have POC characters this year. Since I am a white person, I am not in a position to really judge the quality of that representation, so I'm not going there in this recommendations video. I think it's more important, especially when fictional world building is involved, to be highlighting authors who are bringing their own diverse voices to SFF. So all of the books with POC representation I'm going to be talking about today are own voices, but the way last year's video topic was phrased, it was clear to me that it was an invitation to also talk about POC authors regardless of whether or not what they were writing was own voices POC fiction. And I'm not super clear if that's meant to be part of the topic this year since it's phrased featuring people of color, but since I included I think at least one book that fit that description in last year's video, I'm going to talk about a couple that I read this year in a sort of honorable mention. And these are all books that I gave either 4 or 5 star ratings to. I'm not including things that were 3 stars or under for me for the purpose of this particular video. So when I made that video last year, I had finally read the first book in the Broken Earth trilogy, the 5th season, but I had not yet read books 2 and 3. So in this video for things I read in the past calendar year, I'm including the Obelisk Gate and the Stone Sky, but these are pretty self-explanatory because these are so popular in the SFF community right now. I'm not going to linger on them, especially since I'm not talking about the first book I already did in the last year's video. But since I had only read the first book at this time last year, I could not at that point attest to the quality of the series as a whole. I really appreciate this series now because of how well structured it is as a 3-book series. The Obelisk Gate was 4 stars for me and the Stone Sky was 5. I thought this was just a really, really strong finale, and it was very clear that everything in books 1 and 2 had been building up to this. Next on my list is another repeat author from last year's video. This time I'm going to be talking about Wild Beauty by McLemore. This is a book that I've talked about quite a bit, and I still might actually do a full review of it, so I'm not going to talk a ton about it here, but this is young adult magical realism featuring a family of Latino women and their relationship with their heritage and with the land they live on and their magical powers. It's also insanely romantic and it has bisexual representation in it. And the next book I have here is also a repeat author from last year. Wow, I do have some new authors to add to this list, I promise. And this is Akata Witch by Nnedi Okorafor, which is the first book in her young adult series. This honestly mostly felt like borderline middle grade YA for me. I'm not sure how the next book, Akata Warrior, is going to be. Presumably the character gets a little older as the series goes on, I don't know. When I made last year's video, of course, I recommended the first 2 books in the Binti novella trilogy. I still have yet to read book 3, but I felt like this book was a little more accessible, a little more easy to get into. It's fantasy, not sci-fi. It is for younger readers, but I felt like it has a lot of the same themes of the Binti series that have to do with identity, specifically divided identity, focusing on a character whose contradictions are ultimately what make her whole. This is about Sunny, who's an albino Nigerian girl born in America, living in Nigeria again, and she learns that she has magical abilities. She gets inducted into the world of magic in Nigeria, and she and her friends have to work together to confront a threat. I haven't actually wrapped this up yet because I read this last month and I haven't done my wrap-up for March yet, so watch out for a wrap-up for this. So far, everything in this video has fallen into the fantasy category of SFF, so you'll be glad to know that last night I finished reading a book that is Own Voices POC science fiction, haha. That is The Tea Master and the Detective, which is a novel in the Julia universe by Aliette de Bodard. I had a review copy of this from NetGalley. It's now out from Subterranean Press, and I will be doing a full review of this. I've not yet read a whole ton of Aliette de Bodard's fiction set in this universe. It is, all short fiction, I believe, in this loose series, and I think everything in it can kind of be read on its own. There's a lot that can be read for free online, so I might have to go back and read some of that now. I had previously read one story of hers set in this world that was in the anthology The Starlit Wood. But this is a science fiction world focusing on a space empire that is based on Vietnamese and I think also Chinese culture and history. And this novella is a mystery story modeled on a Sherlock Holmes archetype, and I enjoyed it a lot, so I will be doing a review of this. And then last but not least, I want to give those shout outs I promised to a couple of books I read this year that were by POC authors, but were not featuring POC characters. I did a double review video with both of these together, and those are Under the Pendulum Sun by Jeannette, which is a dark, sort of creepy gothic fae fantasy that's really heavily influenced by the work of the Brontes, that is all about Victorian missionaries going to Fairy where crazy bonkers stuff happens, and it is a mind bender with tons of creepy fae stuff and weird obscure theology. And then the other book I reviewed in that video was The Beautiful Ones by Silvia Moreno-Garcia, which is a high society fantasy of manners romance. I also read and reviewed another novella by Silvia Moreno-Garcia this year, which was Own Voices Latinx science fiction, and that was Prime Meridian. I'll link that review as well, but that book only got 3 stars for me, so it didn't quite meet the requirements to get into this video on its own. Anyhow, that's what I've got to recommend for this year. I hope this continues to be a Booktube SFF Babbles topic every year. That way I can actually hold myself accountable publicly for reading SFF by POC authors every year. But let me know if you've read any of the books I mentioned in this video or in last year's. Let me know if you've done this topic this year or last year, and let me know what you think. Anyhow, I hope you're having a nice day. That is all. Bye for now.